going on, everybody? Austin Ariel here again, and today I have a little different video for you guys, something that I teased on my Instagram. So if you guys are not following me on my Instagram, the Instagram is just my name, Austin Ariel. The spelling is down below in the description. But today I bring to you this. This is known as Big Daddy, as Rachel calls it. But as I like to call it, this is a 2000 Lincoln Navigator, and this is my Lincoln Navigator. I've acquired this car from my grandfather as he left it in the will when he passed away last October. So I am very thankful to have this vehicle, and I'm not gonna lie, I've never had a vehicle this large, and Lord have mercy, I absolutely love this thing. So I'm excited to bring it to you guys. I'm excited to share it with you guys because as I own this thing, I'm going to talk about all the things that might be wrong with it, the repairs needed to be done with it, living with this thing, the gas mileage, etc. I'm going to keep you guys up to date on ownership of this thing because I drive Big Daddy all day, every day. This is my new daily driver. I don't drive the K5 as much. Matter of fact, I haven't driven the K5 in about a week and a half, almost 2 weeks now. So this thing is probably one of my favorite cars that I've ever had. So I'm very, very happy to share with you guys. So in saying that, welcome back to my channel. If you're new, hit the subscribe button. That way you can get all the up-to-date things when it comes to my channel. Hit the bell in the upper right hand corner. That way you get an alert every time I release a new video. So without further ado, let's get to the video. So a little history on the Navigator. This is the first generation model introduced back in 97 as a 98 year model. Now this is based off of the Ford Expedition. Not a surprise there. There was a lot of badge engineering going on in the 90s. This is no exception. This thing is literally a Ford Expedition with a lot of nicer features, but there's some things that this thing came standard with, one of which was the rear air suspension, which this one has, and it's also factory, and yes, it is 100% intact. So that's another thing. In addition to that, when this thing was introduced, it was actually quite powerful, okay? It was initially offered, if I'm not mistaken, with a 4.6 V8. This one has a 5.4 liter V8 that was introduced for the 2000 model year. Also an option on the 1999 model year, but 2000 was the big one for the 5.4. And this 5.4 is actually very similar to other 5.4s that Ford uses, but this one was a 4-valve V8, whereas the others were either a 3-valve, etc. So in saying that, this thing was what put everybody on the map. Like had their Escalade, but at the time it was actually a little bit smaller than this thing. It was a little bit dwarfed, not only in terms of size, but also in terms of powertrain. It had a weaker powertrain at the time. So this is the SUV that started the huge craze of luxury SUVs, things that followed the Mercedes ML class, the BMW X5, you know, you have this thing to thank for that. So in saying that, why don't we give this thing a little look? Because at the end of the day, this thing is super, super clean, and I'm very excited to share with you guys. Let's get to it. I want to talk about the front end styling on this thing because it's so 90s, but yet it's almost timeless because you've got everything that you'd want in a pure American luxury vehicle. Big, brolic. You have their waterfall cascading grille that they actually used for quite a while. The Lincoln badge, which is all original, which is kind of fading, but it is red in color. All the chrome. And let's talk about this color. Old man tan, as they call it. I think it's like a champagne gold. I think it's gorgeous. But you notice this huge headlight unit that carried Lincoln's design language at the time. Huge circular fog lights, which almost reminds me of the Evo's fog lights. Super interesting. And then down here, you do have a painted plastic piece, but it's not painted like a gloss paint. Definitely more durable material. But overall, this thing just means business, and it's big, and this thing is brolic. I mean, I'm a huge fan of the styling. I think for a lot of 90s SUVs, they were very round vanilla. I'm looking at you, Expedition. But this thing had more edges, more squares. It just looked very nice. So let's talk about the wheel setup here. So this is a 17-inch wheel. It is wrapped in a 275 width tire 60 series sidewall. But I'm not going to talk about the tires too much, just because, again, I inherited this from my. I'm unsure if this is the factory spec tire, so I'm not going to try to mislead anybody, but this is the tire that's on the vehicle now, and it actually does feel very, very nice. This car is definitely comfortable, and it eats up bumps all the way around. Now, the actual design of the wheel, this thing's definitely truck-like. Nowadays, you've got these super multi-spoke wheels that are chromed out, or, you know, machine finished, multicolors, etc. This thing is super simple. You got a truck-like design here. You got this chrome center cap. Nothing really crazy. They definitely kept this very truck-like, but a little bit more luxurious. Still a great design. Let's talk about the rear of the Navigator here. So, like I said, this is the first gen, and this does have the original pinstripe with the Navigator emblem. This actually had its own individual emblem here, which was a globe. Now, in addition to that, you can see the design language here. I always thought Lincoln's taillights at the time looked kind of like a leaf or something of that nature. That's just always what it reminded me of. And then you do have a chrome tip exhaust back here, single exit exhaust. And then outside of that, the only other thing I want to make note is that these windows back here are actually power venting. And then on top of that, this is actually where they house the antenna for the AM/FM radio. That was a change for the 2000 model year. They actually hit it into this pillar here. I don't remember if it's this side or the driver's side, but it's in one of them. C'est la vie. In addition to that, you are going to have a rear wiper, a huge back glass window, which is really great visibility in this thing. It's impeccable, I swear on my life. But the cool thing is this window actually opens up separate from the tailgate, which is really nice. You've got two handles here. You do have these reverse bulbs that are actually in the center, so that was actually something fairly common in a lot of cars in the 80s and 90s. Even some 2000s vehicles used it, like the mid 2000s Honda Accord, the one with the LED taillights. So that model did that. And then this one does have the towing package, so you do have a third light here that my grandfather actually put on there. You do have badging here, Navigator, 32 valve Intech V8. That is what they branded this V8 as. I know one other Lincoln model, I think maybe the Continental at the time, used an Intech V8. It wasn't the same one as this one, but it was their branding for their higher tech V8s. So this one carried that branding, and like I said, this is the 32 valve V8, okay? So it was a 4 valve per cylinder, okay? Make note of that. In addition to that, all you really have here, you got your third brake light, you do have your washer for your wiper blade, and then you do have a very abysmally tiny Lincoln badge here. It's kind of interesting, but you do have Lincoln wording here. And then outside of that, you do have a fairly decent amount of chrome, and then you do have this plastic cladding here, so that way you don't have to damage the bumper trying to load things into your Navigator. So that's pretty much the outside of the car. Why don't we take a peek of what's going on inside the Navigator? Before I get in, I want to make note that this has the original keypad that Ford was putting on a lot of their Ford, Lincoln, and Mercury vehicles at the time. And I do have the original code, and it works flawlessly. Right now the car's unlocked. You can literally press these two buttons and it'll unlock it just like so, and it's really nice. Another thing I want to make note, this door handle, which is metal, feels so nice. You can pull on it and it means business. This thing is so well made. Probably one of the most well-made door handles I've ever felt in my life. I truly mean that. Another attention to detail is if you wanted to look at the Navigator badge, this is what it looked like. It's right here, right on the door, close to the front fender, but it actually looks really cool. And like I said, that globe was kind of their insignia for the Navigator. Sadly, it only lasted really for the first generation. I would have loved to see it carry on into future iterations. So we're going to step inside the interior of this Navigator, but there's a few things I want to go over, okay? First thing, on the door pockets, you do have your mirror controls here on the top. In addition to that, you do have your memory seating controls, lock buttons, and then window switches. And then you have this wood grain that just sits on top of these panels nicely. You can see you still have the factory lettering here. And then you have this huge door pull, which feels super nice. It's still well built in there. Door handle, which is actually a plastic finish. Would have been nice to see if it was been chrome. And then a factory speaker, and then you do have a pocket on the side and the light there that still works. Getting into the inside, I will make note, guys, I have not cleaned any aspect of this interior, so this is how my grandfather actually left it. So in saying that, seat controls are down here. You will have various controls, up and down motor. Of course, you have this one which changes the rear backrest area. This will control forward or backwards movements, and you do have a factory heated seat switch. You do have a lever to fold it if you need to, lumbar support, etc. He kept 2 mats in here, and then you can see you have a pedal situation here that's actually power adjustable. And yes, I said power adjustable pedals. Automatic headlights with the wood grain surround, rear defroster, and then you do have your brake pedal for the parking brake, and then your parking brake release there, and then of course your hood release. And then on the steering wheel, I want to make note, this is the single coolest steering wheel I think I've ever seen in my life. And the main reason is, look at the adjustments. You can change the temperature and the fan speed from the steering wheel. I don't know why manufacturers don't do this more often. The other thing I want to make note, look at the shape of the steering wheel. You notice how the outgoing S-Class from Mercedes had a steering wheel similar to this? Coincidence? I think not. And then the rest of the interior we can get to shortly. So I'm inside this 2000 Lincoln Navigator, and look at this. 133,000 original miles on this thing. This thing is not even broken in, as I've seen some with 300 to 400,000 miles on the stock motor and transmission. You do have, of course, the column shifter for the 4-speed automatic, clock up top. You've got your radio here, and then you do have an Alpine audio system that came standard on this car. You do have these buttons here that control the climate controls, and then you do have a button for the outside temp, which is really nice. It's actually 60 degrees right now, so it matches the interior. Really, really cool. In addition to that, you do have your adjustments here for the sound, so you can change the bass, treble, etc. And then you do have the fan speed function here. What's interesting is when you control the fan here, it doesn't move that little knob over there. Don't think they thought that through, but who cares? You do have a 12-volt power outlet here, cigarette lighter there, just shows the times. And then here it says push. What could that be? You push it and look, you got an ashtray and another cup holder. How about that? And then in addition to that, look at this. You got a storage pocket there, storage here with your coin slots, all finished in wood grain. And then you do have these 2 cup holders with these inserts, which that one's taken out just because we use our blender bottle often. And then over here you do have your airbag, and then you do have your side vent and your glove box, all finished with wood grain, which is really nice. And then you do have an auto dimming mirror that was actually standard on this vehicle. And then you do have this display here, which can tell you your compass, but also things like your range, your average miles per gallon. Yes, I'm getting 11.5 miles per gallon. And then you can leave it as a compass, turn it off, but I leave it on the range. And then you do have your rear climate controls. And like I said, the rear windows, they can actually be vented open. They are power venting. And then this one does have home link. And then up here, you've got sunglass holder. And then this is actually for a garage door opener, which is really nifty. And then you have your map lights here, which actually work flawlessly. So why don't we get to the back area of this Navigator? So I'm sitting in the back of the Navigator, and this is obviously a full-size SUV. It is a truck-based SUV, something that's rare nowadays. As you can see, I've got a ton of room. You've got so many nice materials back here for the age-appropriate nice materials. And honestly, I just love the way I feel back here. Like, I can totally, as a full-size vehicle, you definitely have enough space. This thing is a tank, and I love every bit of it. So let's talk about what you're going to find back here. So looking in the back, you can see the door cards have similar finishes to the front, similar storage pockets. And then down in the back seat, the Lincoln emblem is embossed there. Leather, of course. You can see all the fit and finishes here. You do have stereo controls for the rear passengers and headphone hookups. And then you do have cup holders, a huge storage pocket area if you need to. And then up here you do have your climate controls for the rear passengers along with the vents. Map pockets on both backings of the seat, magnetically closed. And then one thing I want to point out is on this plate here, you can see the Lincoln embossed in this chrome plate. Looks really nice. You actually have it on the front as well. Really, really nice. And then you do have a third row. I keep it folded down at all times just because I never need it, but there's really nothing interesting about it, so I'm not really gonna tinker too much with that. And then you do have map lights on both sides there and here as well, so really, really cool. And you do have adjustments to actually fold it flat or third row entry. It's really cool because if you do the fold flat, you can fold it flat like that, and then you can press this and make it a completely flat space. How cool is that? I think that's wicked. Outside of that, there's nothing really too much worth mentioning, except you can open the glass separate from the tailgate, like I said, and then close it. And then if you want to open the tailgate, just pull. Look at that. The original hinges hold this thing up. How sweet. And this thing is so heavy that they have an actual pull here to bring it down. Like I said, there's really nothing worth mentioning back here. Got your jack storage, got cup holders for the third row, but outside of that, there's really nothing worth mentioning. All right, so we're in the Navigator. I got the windows down right now just because it's a beautiful day. I might roll them up a little bit just for sound quality, but like I said, this thing is, for its age, pretty meticulous. My grandfather took amazing care of this car. You know, he has pretty much every receipt for anything ever done to this thing. It's quite amazing how much he has done to this car. So outside of that, the only other thing I really want to make note of is this thing is one hell of an SUV. It's big, it's brolic. It gets terrible gas mileage. It gets like 11 miles to the gallon. But this thing is sweet. I truly mean that. Now, one thing I do want to point out is the fact that this thing is so comfortable. I mean, this thing honestly just, it's very comfortable. I'm gonna roll the windows up real quick. But yeah, I mean, this thing's very antiquated in the way that it's laid out, and you know, the interior and things like that, but that's what you'd expect for a 21-year-old SUV. But I still like how big it is, how brolic it is, and it's honestly just a truck at the end of the day, so I could really do a ton with this thing if I wanted to. This one is a rear-wheel drive model, and it does have the air ride suspension, so I could tow. I think this thing's tow rating is like 81 to 8,600 pounds, which is insane. Now, one thing to make note is that the interior does need to be really, really cleaned. But outside of that, I mean, there's no tears in the leather that I could see. The heated seats work, which is nice. Granted, it's only a one stage, but who cares? And then outside of that, I mean, it's just overall a nice drive. Transmission shifts literally instantaneously, super smooth. The engine itself reacts amazingly, and part of that I truly do believe is because of that naturally aspirated V8 aspect. Now, there are some drawbacks, like certain things don't work sometimes, like the starter misengages sometimes. The flywheel is taking some damage, so I do have to replace those two things. The left mirror adjustment, or the adjuster to pretty much adjust the mirror to the right or left, that is a little finicky. Who cares? I mean, it'll be a cheap replacement anyways. And then outside of that, I mean, it's a really, really comfortable ride. I really do enjoy it. His AC does take forever to cool down, so I'm just going to leave the windows open a little bit. So I do apologize for any road noise, but overall, I'm super happy with this thing. I'm very thankful that he left it for me. I've wanted this thing ever since I was a little kid. You know, I grew up in this Navigator, so I'm very thankful to have it. Now, saying that, if you guys do like the content that you're seeing, again, subscribe to the channel. I'd be super thankful for it. Give this video a thumbs up if you like it, of course. And then, like always, I mean, hit that bell in the upper right hand corner. That way you get an alert every time you see this video, or every time I release a video. Let me recant. I just can't talk this morning, guys. I'm so sorry. My brain is just not working. It just really isn't. I mean, I don't know what it is. I haven't had coffee yet, so I'm banking on it being that. But anyways, this is going to be my daily driver now. I'm going to rack up, honestly, as much mileage as I can on this thing. I'm super comfortable driving it. It's fairly inexpensive to maintain, so it doesn't really bother me much. But I'm going to be using this to drive, so if you see me around, you'll probably see some of my stickers or anything like that on the car. So if you're thinking about getting one of these as a cheap old SUV, I'd say do it, but I would say don't get one with low mileage, because you might have to invest some money to fix it up, because most of these are at that age where you need to do quite a bit of upkeep to them. Luckily, my grandfather did do a lot of that already, so I don't have to worry about that personally. However, not everybody's lucky. So I would just say, be mindful of that if you are in the market for an older SUV. Now, me personally, this thing's about 2 or 3 years away from being a legal antique, if I'm not mistaken. So once that happens, I'm gonna throw an antique plate on this thing, never have to do emissions again, and not have to worry about a thing. So in saying that, I'm gonna keep you guys up to date on ownership with this car. If it totally goes to crap, then we'll explore that option as well. But that way y'all can see what it's like living with a vehicle of this age and this caliber. So again, thank you guys for watching. I would definitely appreciate the support. You guys have been amazing thus far. So until next time, I'll see you.